Well, a recent investigation from ProPublica and the Seattle Times found years of glaring errors in keeping proper field records in our wars. Now, veterans are finding it not just complicated, but sometimes impossible to access the welfare claims that they and their families are entitled to because of endemic processing errors at the DoD. Now, in some cases, the war records needed for vets to access benefits have been lost, or even worse, destroyed. So how did they let it get so bad? Well, joining us in our Google Hangout to discuss, we have Pete Sleeth, Hal Berton, Richard Sanders, and Curtis Joseph. Hello, gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us today. Pete, maybe you can start us off just by telling us how it is that you even came about trying to report on a story like this and to do this investigation, you know, when you learned that there was a massive deficit in the record-keeping process.
I had been one of those early embedded reporters during the invasion of Iraq. And in 2011, I decided to write a battle history of a week-long battle at the city of Asamawa, Iraq. And to make a long story short, I could not find any records. I was looking for after-action reports that would tell me where different battalions were. But most interesting to me was the casualty report of the sole American casualty from that fighting, Sergeant Jacob Butler. I could find no casualty report, no matter where I went. And I eventually contacted his family, who said they'd been on a similar journey and could find nothing. And that's what's made me call ProPublica, because it quickly became apparent the Army had lost a lot of records. Training for Army record keeping has fallen by the wayside. Senior officers in particular aren't schooled in how important it is and punished when they don't do it correctly. Leadership of the Army hasn't made it a priority. And this was the first, Iraq, Afghanistan were the first electronic wars where everything was done by computer and without clerks for the most part. So you had captains and majors doing all of the record keeping. Sometimes they did it, sometimes they didn't. And then many times we're finding the hard drives of their computers were erased before they came home, often for security reasons.
That's what happened with our Washington National Guard in the Northwest here. They made two separate deployments to Iraq. And each time at the end, according to a spokesman for the Guard, what happened was, as they were to turn these computers over to the incoming unit, they were told to basically purge the computers of the records, the classified records that they had kept, and presumably for security concerns. It was what was described as part of the to-do list. So the Washington National Guard historian now really doesn't have those records at all, except for public affairs and reports that were non-classified. They just don't have them.
Richard, maybe you can start us off, because this has happened to you, where you've had problems trying to access the records, that could help you get benefits, that could help you get what you deserve. And so tell us how that went down.
I mean, thankfully, to get enrolled in the GI Bill and everything else, I've been using my DD-214 and ERB, which I still had, were sufficient for that. However, there was delay after delay. I'm currently enrolled in Brookdale Community College. I'm an officer in the Student Veterans Club, and time again, whenever I see new students, we consistently get delays. And it makes me kind of beg the question, as far as if they're having this much of an issue with delays now, what would happen if every veteran decided they wanted to use their benefits? Could they even accommodate that? With the current backlog there is, they keep saying they're going to up the staff. I mean, I've been out barely a year now, and I've heard that time and time again the VA is going to do that. The other thing that's kind of concerning, more so on the topic of lost records, is that I'm actually looking to go back into the military. I'm looking to go into the Air Guard and go TAC-P. And that whole process has taken almost a year now. I mean, pretty much I've been looking to go Air Guard since I got out. And the whole premise behind that is that my medical records were lost. They were lost for 6 months out of Fort Drum, to the point where Fort Drum, they were supposed to transfer it to the VA, who was supposed to send it to Vet Rex, or they basically, those three entities were all pointing fingers at each other. And only when I got a congressman involved did my records mysteriously pop up.
Curtis, why don't you tell us about what happened to you?
I was a former Navy EOD diver, and I was injured with an arterial gas embolism in 1991. Probably about 15, 16 years later, I went to the VA in Iowa City, Iowa, for basically a review of what was going on. Had a lot of issues that were going on that were subsequent to the accident. After a physician had requested my records, not only was he denied my records, he told me that, and this is a Harvard-educated psychologist who said that he had never seen any type of denial like was denied to my records. And I then requested a Freedom of Information Act to get my records, and I was told that there was nothing being withheld. So then I contacted Senator Tom Harkin, I contacted Congressman Dave Loebsack, and I contacted the VA in Des Moines. And here, I'll show you this. This will be funny. I don't know if you guys can see this. Here's all the records that I got. I've got all of my records in triplicate. The funny part is, the part that's missing is the accident. And not only did I get my disability claim, I appealed it and I won the claim. And I still can't get my records.